If you're hiring a team in the Philippines and you want to make it a success as a business owner, listen up to some of these tips about what business owners often get wrong when they're looking to hire and build teams remotely. If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Pete Moriarty, and we help business owners with their systems, their people, their technology, helping them get things organized so they can build more successful businesses. Now, we ourselves have a hybrid team, and I've been hiring Philippines-based employees for right on about 10 years now. And we were one of the earliest businesses in Australia, our home country, to start hiring international labor in the small business space. And what we found has been a very interesting journey over the years of actually building a remote and international team. Now it's become all the rage now, and all of the most popular businesses that are kind of up and coming now want to hire a VA. They want to get into this amazing opportunity for cheaper labor to be able to grow their business and to make things easier. But we see a lot of businesses start to stumble as they go down this route. And this is not just a challenge in the Philippines. I guess these kind of themes could be applied to any business in a more developed economy who is looking to take advantage of cheaper labor in more up-and-coming economies. And so if you're perhaps based in the US and you're looking to hire in South America, or if you're in maybe the UK and you're looking to hire in Eastern Europe, which is pretty popular, you can potentially apply some of these lessons as well. And so, for me, we're going to use the example of Australia, and I'm going to use the example here of my lived experience in what I've seen in our current market, but hopefully it's going to translate to you as much as possible. Now, I'm using the example of hiring team members in the Philippines because that's where our business has hired, and that's been my personal experience as well. So I'm going to share as much as I can from my experience, and hopefully that's going to be useful for you. Now, many businesses, as they begin to scale, start looking to hire more and more team members, and many, they get the idea that, hey, maybe I can start to look at contractors in different economies and find cheaper skilled labor for me to be able to meet my business goals. And there are tremendous benefits of hiring offshore labor for your business if you are operating in a high cost of living country or a more developed market. That is, the obvious one is the cost. You can get skilled labor at a much cheaper price. But one of the other benefits is you can get quite specialist skilled labor as well. You can get the kind of labor that you may not be able to get in the home country where your business is based. And some of the advantages that I like about working in the Philippines in general and hiring team members from the Philippines is that most people in the Philippines will actually go to university. And so what that means is most of the professional workforce have got a pretty good education. Number two is that even though in most areas of Southeast Asia, you're going to have a bunch of different languages as native languages in different countries. The Philippines, each person is actually taught English. So anyone who's gone to a school or university is going to be learning English as well as the local language of Tagalog, which is the national language. And there's hundreds of other dialects that are available in the Philippines as well. So you're going to get someone who's not only fluent in English, but also is likely to have multiple languages under their belt as well, which is pretty cool and also useful. And thirdly, the thing I really love about working with a team from the Philippines is there is an amazing culture of service. And now part of that has to do with the history of the Philippines, and part of that has to do with how the culture of the Philippines itself and the Filipino people have kind of developed. But there is an amazing culture of service. And so for myself, I run customer service teams, we run project management teams, we run customer delivery teams. We are a service business. So it happens to suit our business really well. Now, over the years, I've advised literally thousands of business owners on how to grow more successful businesses. And I've been involved in a number of different business communities and seen businesses grow and scale and start to hire offshore teams. And we've seen plenty of mistakes that have been made along the way, as well as making our own mistakes as well, as we've actually built our international team. Now, we've got a pretty successful team right now. We have over 60 employees across our group of multiple companies, and I'm proud to say that we have a pretty fantastic retention rate on our team as well. For many call centers or remote operations or business processing outsourcing of companies or organizations, some of them will actually have turnover of up to 50% per year for all of their employees. And I'm very proud to say that ours is actually a fraction of that. And so let's talk about some of the ways that businesses can kind of get caught up as they begin this process of internationalizing their labor force. And I'd say there's a journey to go along with any business owner who's looking to hire in the Philippines or anywhere international in general. And it's partly a business journey, but it's also partly a journey of embracing a different race and embracing a different culture. What I found in myself and what I also noticed in other business owners who are taking their first steps in this area is it's very easy to jump into what I call othering, which is, seeing someone as an other and, seeing somebody as an alien or very different. And, not only is that something that's a little bit dehumanizing, but also it's something that, potentially there's a little bit of a journey to go on yourself in how you actually see people of other cultures and how you actually see people in other countries. It's very easy to fall into the trap of seeing someone as having a lower salary and therefore seeing them as potentially more disposable, or seeing them as someone who is of lesser value because they're being paid less. The reality is that no matter where someone is working, even though they are in a different economy and the different market rates for their actual salaries can be dramatically different, sometimes a fraction of costs in more developed countries, it doesn't really change who someone is as a human. So that's probably the first hurdle to get by, is to inspect one's own biases about a different race or a different culture and actually working with someone who is outside of potentially your skin tone, outside of your country, outside of your culture, outside of your society's values that you've grown up in, and outside of your lived experience as well. Now, an interesting story in Australia, for many Australian business owners, they've had a pretty bad reputation when it comes to Philippines-based employees. And that's because one of our national telecommunications carriers, they're called Telstra, had large call centers in the late 90s and early 2000s, primarily staffed with Philippines-based employees. And what ended up happening was, because there was a poor level of customer service based on the management of Telstra managing those call centers, Australians got a really sour taste in their mouth about offshore call centers. And I'm sure there's a version of that in many countries all around the world. And so the reputation of businesses that wanted to hire in the Philippines all took a hit because of that experience. Now, I can't blame that all on just that one single company, but what I do know is for many business owners, when they share their fears around hiring and expanding an international team, particularly in the Philippines, they mention, well, I don't want to be like Telstra. And so over the years, there's been a big shift in business owners having to rewrite the pages of what that experience was like as a customer for them to be able to ready to actually build those teams. And so that's basically one of the biggest challenges, is actually getting past the hurdle of the stigma of offshoring operations. And it's not to say that there isn't a tremendous amount of work to make an international team actually work effectively, but in an increasingly globalized world and an increasingly globalized culture, there is a pathway for it to be successful. And thankfully, we are an example of that. So I started this section talking about disposability and seeing someone as an other. And once you've got past the kind of emotional parts of confronting if you have any kind of challenges there, we then need to talk about the actual commercials. Now, if you're seeing somebody as disposable because they're on a much lower pay rate than you, or because you have a wide open labor market and there is a pretty massive labor market in the Philippines, then that's going to be the wrong way to approach doing business. Myself, when I do business, I always make sure that the relationships I'm building based on longevity, and that's going to be pretty basic. For anyone who wants to build a successful business, you want to have staff that stay with you for a long time so they can learn your business, learn your customers, and ideally work in symbiosis with you to really build a powerful and productive team. Now, one of the challenges that can happen is when people start hiring offshore is seeing someone as disposable because it's pretty easy to pick up an additional salary or pretty easy to pick up an additional person for a position. If you're paying a quarter or even a fifth of standard rates in your country, it's pretty easy to see someone as disposable and replaceable in the business. Now, the challenge with that is if subconsciously you're treating someone as if they are disposable, well, they're probably going to be less likely to bring their best self to work if they are feeling disposable working with you and working with your business. And not only is that going to have obvious effects on the productivity inside your business, but there is also a flip side to that equation, and that is the VA or virtual assistant economy. And that is effectively the culture of Philippines-based or international-based employees ghosting out on remote companies. And what that phenomena is effectively you have a culture where one side businesses are treating employees or contractors like they are disposable, and on the other side the employees are acting like they're disposable and basically hopping from job to job, are not really having any loyalty to any of the contractors that they're working with. And they tend to be hopping from one employer to the next highest paying, to the next highest paying, to the next highest paying, sometimes even holding onto multiple jobs at once at the same time. We call that moonlighting, because they are looking for the next best gig, not knowing where their next dollar is going to come from, because they are being treated as a disposable asset. So you can see where that gets pretty messy, and it's very important for a business to be intentional about the culture that you're building and about the retention of your employees, so you don't start to run into that trap. And that's one of the reasons why we recommend hiring directly after you've hired a few employees in the Philippines, rather than actually going through an agency or going through something like Upwork or Odesk and finding freelancers individually. Those who have been in the VA industry for a while, and I'm talking about the contractors here, will tend to already be in the habit of moving between different employers fairly regularly. And what we try and hire when we're looking for a great candidate for our business is someone who's had corporate experience in the Philippines and is looking to work remotely or at home for the first time, or work for an international remote business for the first time. Now, everyone's been working over the last couple of years pretty darn remotely thanks to the coronavirus pandemic. So at least you're going to get someone who's most likely had some work from home experience now. But ideally, you want to look for someone who is also not yet embedded in the VA industry. While we're talking about VAs, let's address that term VA. We just talked about othering, and we just talked about treating people disposably. I don't personally like the term VA or virtual assistant. There's nothing virtual about a human who's working with you who happens to be in another country, happens to be another race or from another culture or another nationality. And so we don't use the term virtual assistant in our business. I have many business owners who come to me and say, wow, you've got an amazing team of VAs in the Philippines. And I say, well, actually, no, they're not virtual humans. They're real humans. I have a relationship with them. And I try not to use that term ever, because for us, our international team is a much more appropriate frame than someone being virtual in our business. So far, we've covered the basics on getting started hiring offshore in the Philippines and what are some of the traps that you need to look out for. I'm going to go through some more of the practicals in part 2 of this video, so jump on the link down below and you'll be able to access the second part. Now, if you're a business who's growing, no matter where you are in the world, we can help you with Google Workspace, growing and scaling remote teams, and helping you build a more productive business with technology and teams. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, click onto one of the links below. And if you're already a subscriber to Google Workspace, we've got a pretty tremendous offer for you to transfer in your billing to us and get access to Genius Academy. Inside Genius Academy, we have an 8-week program for free, which gives you access to our remote web playbook. And what that helps you do is build a remote team no matter where your business is, and take advantage of international labor for you to build a more successful and scalable business. If you're interested in that, jump onto our transfer in offer below. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.